Hey, I hope everyone's doing good. I had a question over the weekend and I just wanted to answer it in a video. AR15 barrels, how are they built? Why are they built? So AR15 barrel, obviously it's pretty much a normal barrel until you get to the extension. The extension is kind of the exception with conventional the building of rifle barrels. This is a AR15 extension. You can see that the lugs actually allow the lugs on the bolt face to interface with them, and then it can rotate and lock into the chamber. So your barrel is machined with a shoulder, and then this extension will thread on until it hits the shoulder. At the 12 o'clock position, you'll notice a hole's drilled there. That's where the pin is installed. And this is important because this pin coincides with a groove on top of the receiver that lets the builder know that obviously everything's at the 12 o'clock position and your gas port is right here. Is it important to headspace your builds? Yes, unequivocally, yes it is. The best way to do that is obviously with a go and no-go gauge. When you do that, make sure that you remove your extractor and your plunger or ejector, install your gauge, and then put everything into the receiver and then close this. Obviously a go gauge will close, a no-go gauge should not close. And as long as everything's okay, then you should be fine. So how would you make a barrel for an AR-15 if you wanted to make one? Well, you'd start with a blank. Now this isn't a real blank, this is already a barrel. This is a takeoff, but I'm just using this as a visual reference. You take a drill bit, a hollow drill bit that has oil flowing through it and pressurized oil on both sides, and you'd be drilling through this at a really high rate of speed. And once you had your hole drilled, there's two things you could do. You could either use a single point cutter or broach it, or you could use what most manufacturers are doing now, and that would be to use a rifling button. Now I do not have a rifling button, but for visual reference, here's a end mill, and you can see if this was pushed through that breech or that bore, that it would leave lands and grooves behind. And that's all you're doing is removing a little bit of material, so when the projectile comes out, it has something to grab onto and start its rotation to stabilize it through the air. So once you had your rifling in your barrel, you would select a caliber that you'd want to use a chamber reamer to ream a chamber. Well, I just so happen to have a chamber reamer. This is 223 Wild. This is kind of in between 5.56 and 223. The real main difference here is the distance of this cutting area right here. The amount the bullet has to jump before it hits rifling and it has to starts its rotation. So you would, with a lot of lubricant, slowly rotate the barrel and start cutting your chamber, ever so often checking it with a headspace gauge to make sure that you didn't cut too far. So once all that was done, you would thread on your extension, pin it, drill the barrel, pin it, and then you'd be, for all intents and purposes, done after you drilled your gas port for an AR-15, obviously. Anyhow, if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to help or try to answer whatever I know. I don't know it all, that's for darn sure. I'm just a YouTuber like most people. Remember, loose is fast, brakes only slow you down, and shotguns have a wider spread. Be safe and have fun at the range, guys. We'll see you next time.